All right, time to get started. How's everybody doing today?
All good.
Doing well.
Doing all right.
Yep. Everybody had their coffee?
Yep.
Heck yeah.
Outstanding. Outstanding. All right. Really excited to be a part of this live stream on vSphere 8U1 and what's new inside of it. So before we get started, let's do a quick roundtable for the fabulous panelists here. I'll just go around the room. Bob, you want to just start? You're introducing yourself, what you do.
Sure. I'm Bob Plankers. I'm a staff technical marketing architect here at VMware, and I often talk about security and compliance, vSphere in general, all kinds of stuff. So happy to be on. Thanks for inviting me.
Outstanding. Justin.
Hi, good morning, folks. Justin Murray, technical marketing, also a colleague of Bob's. I work particularly on NVIDIA GPUs for machine learning and that kind of thing, and talk a lot about it and bore everybody around me usually. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Féidhlim.
Yeah, hi guys, Féidhlim O'Leary. I'm again a colleague of Bob and Justin's, and I'm kind of one of our generalists for vSphere, basically picking up any of the slack that nobody else wants to work on.
Font of knowledge. We call that a font of knowledge. Yes. You know a lot about a lot of stuff. So
yeah, there you go. Some of those gotta be secrets. And I'll just introduce myself real quick. I'm Shobhit Bhutani, product marketing manager here at VMware, responsible for vSphere product marketing, basically messaging, positioning around AI/ML, DPUs, anything around basically vSphere. And so as part of that, I'm kind of, that's why I'm here kind of talking about this. So just kind of building a background a little bit on this. Really exciting time about vSphere 8 and about vSphere in general. Yesterday, vSphere 8 Update 1 went, basically attained initial availability. So downloads are available at this point. So just you can use the download pages, etc., to go down, start downloading, start testing out stuff. The updates, there was a blog that we sent out yesterday around the technical blog, marketing blog as well. So if you kind of go to blogs.vmware.com/vSphere, you'll find that blog there, which kind of gives you all the information that you need there. So on this same topic, right, there is also a vMug next week that we're going to be presenting in. That's Féidhlim and myself. Féidhlim has been my big partner in arms in this journey. Justin and Bob being specialists in the AML and security field. So with that, let's kick this off. Féidhlim, as the lead TMM on this, can you please kick this off and just kind of talk about, some of the cool things on the launch?
Sure, yeah. So obviously vSphere 8 Update 1 is going to build on all the great stuff that we did in the initial vSphere 8 release. And I'll talk about three aspects here to begin with. The first thing is vSphere configuration profiles, right? This is a net new feature. It's a fundamentally new way that we're going to help customers manage their cluster configuration at scale. And we had a tech preview of that in the 8.0 release, and now it's fully available in 8.0 U1, fully supported. You can use it in production, and it supports vSANs, supports distributed switches, all those good things. Now, config profiles is a new way of solving a familiar problem, because if you've been following ESXi kind of under the hood a little bit in the past couple of releases, we've been changing how ESXi stores its configuration. So in the past, every service had its own config file in a different location. We've consolidated that into what we call the ESXi config store, and we're exposing that through modern REST APIs. So we've built vSphere config profiles to take advantage of all that work we've done on the ESXi side to make it easier, to make it simpler for you to manage the cluster, the configuration of all your clusters at a cluster level. So it's pretty cool. It's new. It'll take a little bit of getting used to, especially if you're used to something like host profiles, for example. But a lot of the terminologies we're reusing that you might be familiar with from vSphere Lifecycle Manager, things like compliance, remediation, drift, those sort of things. We're taking that verbiage, those concepts, and we're applying it to the configuration aspect as well. One question that often gets asked around this is, I mentioned host profiles, is that going to still be available? Is that going away? What's happening with that? And it's kind of, we're keeping both there, at least for the moment. Host profiles isn't going away anytime soon. There's some use cases that host profiles can satisfy that vSphere configuration profiles can't yet satisfy, like standalone hosts or hosts that aren't part of clusters. So we need that there to bridge that gap until we have full feature parity, for example. There's also a difference in how a profile and a host profile and a config profile kind of look from a language perspective. I don't know if you've ever looked at a host profile. It's an XML-based document. It's incredibly difficult to read from a human perspective, and it has to facilitate the use of all the various config files in that legacy way that ESXi stored its config. But config profiles is a JSON format document. We've been using JSON now for a while. It's heavily used in other areas. And it's pretty simple to read. I mean, even for someone like me, I'm not a developer, I don't code, but I can read JSON pretty easily. It's fairly self-explanatory. So it allows you to actually compose the document, edit the configuration in one singular document, and then you can apply that to multiple clusters, multiple vCenters. Really opens up opportunities for scale there and automation as well.
Awesome.
So yeah,
keep going.
So that's kind of config profiles in a little bit of a nutshell. And we've got loads of demos and videos up on core.vmware.com that goes into a lot of these use cases and how to use it, how to get your hands on it, and things like that. One of the other cool things that we're doing as well in vSphere 8 Update 1 is expanding on our green metrics, right? So I don't know about you guys over in the States, but here in Ireland, energy costs have soared, and it's a very big thing that customers want control and more visibility of. How much energy are our workloads, is our infrastructure using? So we've built on some of the green metrics that we introduced in vSphere 8 that primarily looked at the host level power consumption. And we're expanding it in 8.0U1 to actually be able to give a better picture of the virtual machine workloads themselves. So how much power are your virtual machines and those workloads consuming? Are they consuming too much, too little, whatever it might be? And you can use that data in conjunction with your other energy provider data to kind of tabulate or to guesstimate the energy efficiency of workloads. And maybe you need to move workloads from certain locations for better energy consumption. So really, really cool. I think we're doing a lot more as well in the future in terms of really pushing energy efficiency as a feature almost to give customers more visibility into their infrastructure, into the power consumption of the infrastructure and the workloads themselves. And the third thing that I'll talk about here in this opening section is around Skyline Health Diagnostics. So Skyline Health Diagnostics isn't anything net new in itself with vSphere 8, but in vSphere 8 Update 1, we're making it easier than ever to be able to deploy it, because we really do want customers to deploy Skyline Health Diagnostics and integrate it with your vCenter. And you'll get a guided workflow to do that in vSphere 8 Update 1. Now, you might be asking, what is Skyline? What does it do? What does it give me? And it's a very lightweight appliance, but it's very powerful, and it really helps you manage your infrastructure. It helps you diagnose problems, resolve problems, and it also can proactively alert you about security advisories that we publish. So it can scan your environment. It can it gets almost like an issue definition update from VMware.com with additional KB articles, relevant issues that it may detect in your environment. So it's proactive health. It diagnoses known issues, and it can also help with upgrade lifecycle. That's can be a huge pain point for customers, knowing how to upgrade, what order, is it supported to go from this version to that version. And Skyline Health Diagnostics can take all that guesswork away from you and give you a clear, detailed plan so that you can execute on your upgrade path as well.
Awesome. So really great explanation. And then, this particular pillar is what we call it, like this, the three key pillars here: enhance operational efficiency, supercharge workload performance, elevate security. These three key features that Féidhlim just talked about as part of the enhanced operational efficiency pillar. This is targeted and, some fabulous features here for our admins specifically, who are always looking to get efficiency inbuilt into how they're managing their environment. So that's one thing to note there. Now, the next pillar is the supercharged workload performance, but there's some really cool GPU feature inside the enhanced operational efficiency pillar. This one, so we're kind of just to make the conversation a little bit better to understand, etc. We're combining both of those together. So introducing supercharged workload performance. So basically, today, due to distributed workloads, workloads which are distributed between not just within the data center itself, but outside the data center itself, a different complexity of apps, etc. Performance of the workloads has become extremely important because the pressure on CPUs particularly has become really, really high this time. So because of this, as part of vSphere 8, we launched support for DPUs. GPUs obviously were supported for a long time earlier, but now specifically around 8 Update 1, there's additional enhancements that were added from a GPU standpoint, and then one for operational for the admins as well for heterogeneous vGPU profiles. So with that, I'm going to kick this over to Justin. Justin, do you mind just kind of talking us through that GPU, the heterogeneous vGPU profile capability inside enhanced operational efficiency, as well as our workload performance efficiency improvement in GPUs?
Yeah, for sure, Shobhit. Thank you. In the heterogeneous vGPU profiles, rather a grandiose name for sharing, effectively, sharing a physical GPU among different workloads. Up to now, we've been very strict. And by the way, vGPU is a combination of NVIDIA software, NVIDIA drivers, and VMware cooperating at the hypervisor level. There's very tight engineering between those teams there to create that. So when you do a virtual GPU profile, what you're effectively doing is saying, I'm giving some GPU power to a VM, one or more VMs. And you can choose either to give the full GPU to the VM and multiple GPUs to the VM, which would be very modern, very large language models, very ChatGPT-like behavior. And we'll talk about that. But more sensibly than that, if you're starting out on this journey, you're probably sharing the physical GPU among 2 or more users. And that's 2 or more VMs. And when you do that, you decide on a virtual GPU profile that says, I'm giving half of my GPU to Justin and half to Shobhit. And they're doing different work. They're on the same host. They're on the same GPU. We're maximizing the utility of the GPU here. We're maximizing the utilization. A lot of our customers are very interested in this, but it's just one end of the spectrum. It's the sharing end of the spectrum. And we'll talk about the other end of the spectrum, which is the max user foot pedal to the metal type in a few seconds. So we've been strict about saying if you're sharing a GPU, then all of you must be the same type of workload. Shobhit and Justin must be doing graphics, or they must be doing compute-intensive matrix multiplication, that's machine learning, or they must be doing virtual desktops. And there are 3 different types of profile for that. NVIDIA builds these profiles, and they have names like C profiles for compute and Q profiles for graphics, Quadro, and A profiles for applications for different types of workloads. And so with specific GPUs now, particularly the A40 and the L40 models, A is for Ampere, L is for Lovelace, as in Ada Lovelace. That's the more contemporary range from NVIDIA. With those specific GPUs, what we're allowing here is that Justin and Shobhit and their different VMs may be actually doing different types of things. Justin may be doing graphics intensive work, and Shobhit may be doing compute intensive work in their different VMs that are sharing the very same GPU device. So that's pretty revolutionary, actually. I've not seen that before in all the years that I've been working on these GPU things. And it's a way of maximizing the usage. It's really for those people who are doing multiple things with their GPUs and really can't afford to buy another one. They want to make use of that one to the limit. And of course, there will be effects here. If these are using time-shared, time-sliced profiles, which is a particular type of profile, then one user could affect another. If they're using MIG-type profiles, multi-instance GPU profiles, you have more isolation between them. So that's that point. On the other end of the spectrum, in contrast to what Féidhlim was saying about conserving energy and being aware of how much energy you're using, what we're seeing in the world outside is bigger and bigger machine learning workloads taking more and more GPUs and using more and more power, actually. And so customers are saying to us, I want to use 4 GPUs in my servers. I want to use 4 GPUs in my VMs. I'm not sharing it all. I want to use 8 GPUs in my VMs. And so in vSphere 8.0, the original release several months ago, we supported the concept of NVLink, which is the ability to have 2 to 4 GPUs intimately connected with each other over very high bandwidth. NVLink is a bridge piece of hardware that connects 2 to 4 GPUs together. And that is a good first step. What's exciting about Update 1, in Update 1, NVIDIA and VMware, again, engineering together, can now add 8 GPUs that are on a server to one VM, all of them talking to each other over NV switch. Now, that may seem incredible to you, but it is incredible. I've only touched that machine for a couple of days because it's so precious. Everybody wants to get on it. But that is just a building block in the NVIDIA universe. It's a building block for hundreds of GPUs being applied to a very large language model like GPT-3, GPT-4 that are sitting behind ChatGPT, for example. And I'm not saying that we're jumping into that world immediately. We're probably going to tread cautiously into that world. But customers now are building models that take 4 GPUs to execute. And the reason for that is the amount of data that's in the model, the weights and the gradients and the various things that tune the model are very, very large. You know, there's 65 billion parameters in some of the models that we're seeing. That's billion with a B. And there's 175 billion parameters in ChatGPT-3. You know, it's huge. So this takes many, many GPUs to execute it. And that's the direction we're going in with this. We want to support workloads that are bigger than just 1 GPU or 2 GPUs. We're able to support that now. And so, you know, I have more comments on those large language models and how they will apply, but that's the vision and direction here. Pretty amazing stuff when you think about it. Back to you, Shobhit.
Fantastic. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no,
and so fantastic, right? So
go ahead, Shobhit.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, in this large language model world, like 175 billion parameters is like Justin mentioned, is for ChatGPT 3. ChatGPT 4, nobody really knows exactly. There's speculation in the trillions is the number of parameters, and there's several models today that are in the trillions already, aside from ChatGPT 4. So the demands on GPUs and workload performance, etc., continues to grow a lot, right? I mean, this is just really the start, in my opinion, about how this field is going to go. So this is a really timely update right? It's an update which really gives fabulous capabilities to vSphere, and our key partner here, NVIDIA, with the NV switch enhancement, the ability to just scale up your AI/ML platform and ML workload tremendously. It's really exciting to me, really honestly speaking, being in this field particularly. Now, shifting gear to elevate security, right? Over here, vSphere 8, vSphere in general, right, vSphere 8 comes in with a lot of inbuilt security already, right? Like, we're really proud of that aspect. Now, in 8 update 1, we're taking it to the next level by adding additional capabilities to that. Bob, you want to just kind of walk us through these as our in-house security expert?
Yeah, sure. And before I do that, I just want to remind people, if you've got questions or comments or whatever, put them out in the chats, and we'll answer them right after we're done here. We'll answer them live, and subscribe to our channels as well while you're there. Not to seem like a YouTube streamer star or whatever, but click the button, ring the bell. At any rate, I'll talk about security a little bit. One of the things about vSphere, one of the big things that we're trying to do, we started it with 7, continuing on an 8, and now 8 update 1. The idea that we want the platforms to be to have all the capabilities that the customers, our users, might need in order to be secure. We'd also like them to be easy to use. We'd like because if they're these features, this functionality is easy to use, then people will actually do it. It's easy to turn on, and people don't have to dedicate staff time to it. And defaults as well. We'd like the platform to default to secure. One of the things that we publish is a security configuration guide for vSphere, and looking at it, why do people have to secure it after they deploy it? Why can't it just come that way? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, but did a lot of work in 8 update 1 on authentication here. So Okta, direct Okta federation support. We've had the ability to federate with Active Directory Federation Services, ADFS, for a while now. And we're going in a slightly different direction, bringing in some of the functionality from the Workspace ONE side of the house, and the ability to federate with other identity providers. Okta's first on the list. And so and that's a really important step forward. You're trying to get vSphere out of the authentication game. Turn that over to enterprise IDPs that are managed centrally. And one IDP in an organization to rule them all, sort of thing. Not to make a Lord of the Rings reference or anything, but then other things too. Make it easy to use. Make these features available, adding the ability to do fault tolerance for VMs that have a virtual TPM. The trusted platform module is there's a physical version that you can put in hosts, and we definitely encourage people to order servers, put them in your servers. That enhances security there. But there's a virtual version of that in vSphere as well, and Windows 11 really cast this into the spotlight, that these TPMs exist, and you need them in order to run Windows 11, to pass compliance and security audits for a lot of platforms. For Windows, just a STIG for Windows Server 2022, for example, and 2019 actually mandates the use of a trusted platform module, and you can add those to your VMs, and just making sure that it's compatible throughout the whole ecosystem. And fault tolerance. We added fault tolerance support in 8 update 1, so that people can use that feature to protect their critical VMs, that sort of thing. Other things too, speaking of TPMs, at the host level. So trusted platform modules help hosts determine whether they have good integrity or not. Did the system, they work with UEFI Secure Boot, and and we do a process called a measured boot, where the secure boot process will store counters in the trusted platform module on the host, and then vCenter server can come along and check that to make sure that the host is trustworthy, and we'll throw alarms if it's not, if something changes or whatever. And so one of the trade-offs there, security is always a trade-off. Then if you've heard me talk before, I always say security always depends on context. Security is always a trade-off. And one of the trade-offs in the past has been quick boot. Quick boot actually really speeds up that doesn't take a whole host, the host through the whole power on self-test process. It just restarts the VM kernel and reloads everything there. And that can be incredibly helpful for large vSAN nodes, for example, where it might have to check and sync some things. You don't want that to take too long. Otherwise, the cluster starts rebuilding itself. The timeouts, you start getting availability timeouts, and it automatically rebuilds the data, that sort of thing. And that's extra load. Yeah, it's just something we don't want to have to do. But hosts that had TPMs, we always want them to go through that whole boot process. Secure boot is named that way because it operates at boot, right? And so there was that trade-off. Well, not anymore. So you can use quick boot with TPM protected hosts, that sort of thing. And so just another example of just trying to make it easy to use, trying to remove any friction there. And then as far as defaults, a lot of what has gone into 8 update 1 is actually really behind the scenes. Hardening for the DISA STIGs, the STIG readiness guide. DISA STIGs are only official if they come from the U.S. Department of Defense. But in the meantime, we publish what we submit to DISA as a STIG readiness guide, and that is published as well. A new security configuration guide will be out within the week here as well. And so you'll see some differences there with the product defaults. Really, the number of things that you need to set if you just want to use the product defaults, the number of things that you need to configure is a lot lower now in 8 and 8 update 1. And so that should buy you some staff time back, honestly. The fewer things to worry about is a good thing, and that's one of our goals for the platform. So so back to you, Shobhit. Do we want to answer some questions, or?
Yeah, I think this would be a really, really good time to kind of take answer questions as we go. Also wanted to kind of open it up for discussion a little bit, right? Like shifting gears to like vSphere 8 for a second, right? Like, this being update 1. 8 was a very massive update to vSphere. Really, really massive update. Update 1 obviously takes it to the next level. But 8 by itself was a game changer for vSphere, right? We brought in cloud functionalities. We brought DPU support. So pretty massive update. So now let's kind of kick this off a little, shifting gears to a little bit to 8 for a second. Just open it up for a roundtable here, right? Anybody go, right? Let's talk about the cloud benefits, right? The fact that we all of a sudden from vSphere 7 to 8, that was the big massive update. Anybody want to kind of talk about that aspect where we opened up cloud support for vSphere?
You're talking about vSphere Plus and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yeah.
vSphere Plus is pretty interesting, like the idea that static licensing, there's been a lot of stuff around, I don't want to say problems, but licensing has been inflexible for a long time, and making that more flexible, and then adding to it some, can we bring some of the cloud benefits back on premises? We know a lot of our customers aren't going to be able to move their on-premises stuff for a lot of different reasons up into the cloud, and but offering them some choice, and especially around management, the vSphere Plus stuff is really kind of interesting. The ability to manage more centrally using cloud tools, to be able to do deployments from there, monitoring. There's a whole security, all of the security configuration guides are implemented in the vSphere Plus consoles and that, so you can see where your security state, things like that. And so there's a lot of interest. In fact, a lot of folks have really positive comments about vSphere Plus. Licensing is way more flexible. The ability to deploy as many vCenter servers as you want is really cool. You don't have to worry about certain things. It's just a per socket sort of subscription, and that's pretty cool. So that's my thought on vSphere Plus. I don't know if the other guys have.
What I like about vSphere Plus, that's something kind of close to my heart, because I started at VMware in support, and one of the first things you ever have to do in support with customers is help with upgrades. It's always, every time there's a new release, they're all the tickets, upgrades. And with vSphere Plus, we have a new way of upgrading vCenter to reduce the total downtime of vCenter from something that could be up to an hour, maybe longer, to 5 minutes, maybe less, depending, which is massive. It's a cool new migration-based upgrade.
Well, it looks a lot like the normal major version upgrades, right?
It does, yeah. It uses a lot of the same under the hood technology there, but with a current major upgrade, it's essentially we stop all the services, we do all our migration, all our upgrading, yada yada yada, and then we start up the new appliance. But that migration, that upgrade period is downtime, and it can take a long time to actually finish. What we're doing now with reduced downtime upgrade is we're leaving the source vCenter up and running and productive while we migrate all that data over. So you're essentially removing all that downtime. So the only downtime that's needed is a quick stop of the services on the old appliance and a quick start on the new appliance. So 5 minutes or less, and we're trying to streamline it and optimize it to make it even shorter. So that's available today for customers on vSphere Plus. Really, really cool impact, really huge feature to reduce the life cycle. And the other thing that I like about vSphere Plus is it allows you to manage your vCenter configurations across your entire fleet. So we've been talking about declarative lifecycle, declarative configuration in lots of our features in recent releases. And now we're doing that from the Cloud Console, being able to push consistent configuration down to all your vCenter instances that are connected to vSphere Plus. And that'll help with things like security compliance as well, to make sure that you're pushing all the right configuration down. So yeah, pretty cool.
Justin, it's so one question we hear a lot from customers, right? What is vSphere Plus? How is it different from vSphere 8, right, or 7? Do you want to kind of educate us a little bit on the high-level benefits of what's high-level differences here?
It might be better to ask the other guys to do that. They're more expert than I am, so I'll pass that over if you don't mind.
Yeah. I think we talked about them here. We've got differences in upgrades and the updates. Using that to reduce downtime update feature for vSphere Plus lifecycle management patching, basically vCenter server patching. You've got differences in licensing. You've got much more flexible licensing, and you've got the ability to manage things centrally. Féidhlim talked about and I talked about the security views and things like that, being able to see your whole fleet globally and being able to manage things that way, being able to configure your vCenter servers and manage those configurations globally, not just on a tactical basis, but at a higher level, that sort of thing. There's a lot of advantages to it. So, just really trying to meet a lot of what people perceive as cloud benefits. Can we bring those back to the on-prem side of the world? And the answer in many cases is yes. So.
Yeah, and then spot on, right? And then just to add to that, it's vSphere Plus is an addition, right? While these are real.
Yeah, it's vSphere 8 Plus, right? So. Yep, I think we're losing Shobhit.
So I think that sometimes it's still choppy.
Yeah, you're breaking up there.
You're a little choppy. Why don't we answer some questions? We got a couple of questions in the while Shobhit is reconnecting with the world here. There's a question, Féidhlim, maybe can we access all KBN advisors in offline mode after deploying Skyline? Do you know the answer to that one? I don't offhand.
Yeah, so this is a great question, and it's always one that comes up when we ever we release any sort of feature that might be, cloud connected or phone home, for lack of a better word. So obviously, if you have connectivity back to VMware.com through the CEIP plugin, Skyline will automatically update those KV definitions and get the latest information. But you do have the ability to update that manually in an offline capacity as well. So you can download an ISO. I think they release every month, or that's kind of the typical release cadence. Every month, a new ISO can be available for Skyline, where you can update it in an offline capacity as well. Similar to things like, the vSAN HCL can be updated in an offline capacity as well. And I think the Skyline ISO actually includes the vSAN HCL package as well, all in one. So yeah, we can work with that in an offline capacity as well. What you would lose in that offline mode, I believe, is you get some nice little features of being able to automatically upload relevant logs to an SR, to a support request. I don't think you get that in the offline mode. You'd have to just go back to the traditional way of uploading logs to a case. But yeah, for the most part, it can work in the offline.
Justin, there's a question about GPU devices. Do you see it?
I see that. Maybe I'll read the question here. If the question is about sharing a GPU device with different profiles, and can we mix profile A and profile B together? Yes. How many VMs can use a GPU device on one ESXi host? Well, when you specify a virtual GPU profile, which you do as a system administrator by adding a PCIe device to your VM, you choose from a set of organized profiles that are already there. They're placed there by the drivers. And those profiles determine how much memory you're going to allocate to your VM. And so the number of VMs is a factor of how much memory you've given to your different sharing VMs. If you've got 32 gigabytes on your GPU, that's your frame buffer memory, then you can have two VMs sharing each with 16 GPUs, 16 gigabytes of memory there, or 4x4, or any combination like that. So as long as you haven't exhausted the resources of the GPU that you're sharing, you can keep on creating VMs until you're full up effectively. And I've done this in the lab. And the little complexity there is there are two types of virtual GPU. There's a time slice one that I mentioned, which is kind of round robin, and there's a multi-instance GPU. The rules for multi-instance GPU are quite different. They lay down the law as to how many maximum you can have when you're doing that, because they provide isolation in the hardware. And to do that, they slice up the hardware into hardware slices. And so with MIG, multi-instance GPU, you're limited to 7 VMs maximum sharing a physical GPU. But that doesn't apply if you're doing time sliced or if you're doing other types of profiles. And the vGPU user guide from NVIDIA is very comprehensive on this point. So have a look at the vGPU user guide on the NVIDIA site. It's got every profile you could ever use. There are hundreds of them across all of the different models of GPU. And so, it's a big topic, but essentially you can fill up your physical GPU with different VMs if you want to. That's, I think, the answer to that one.
Rock on. One other question here. Does 8 Update 1 have a new virtual hardware version? I think it's still version 20, right, Féidhlim?
Yeah, that's right. We introduced version 20 in 8.0, and there's no new in 8.0 Update 1. We typically try and not introduce new virtual hardware versions with update releases. We have in the past, but our default would be not to.
And by the way, you need that new hardware version to support the fancy features that I've been talking about, the heterogeneous profiles and the multiple vGPUs on an NV switch. You need that hardware version. So that's one caveat.
Shobhit, are you with us again? Excellent.
Yeah, hopefully.
He's moving and everything and talking. Look at that.
Yeah.
I'll give it back to you here, man. So,
yeah, sorry about that.
All is good.
Not sure what happened. Just
such as the internet.
Yeah, just the worst day to have had internet problems or PC problems for that matter. So I think we're kind of just went through a little bit of vSphere Plus questions. We went through a little bit of 8 Update 1. Let's kind of talk about, is there for Update 1, have we missed anything Like any other new features like that, Féidhlim, you want to bring up from a TMM side, that we may not have covered?
Let me just bring up my notes just to remind me. I should know all this off the top of my head.
I'll jump in.
But yeah, we spoke about a lot of them. We spoke about the NV switch, the heterogeneous profiles, all the security stuff that Bob mentioned. There's some minor updates to vSphere Lifecycle Manager. We did a lot in 8.0, the initial release, by introducing things like staging, parallel remediation, and things like that. vSphere Lifecycle Manager now can do standalone hosts, so hosts that aren't part of clusters. You now have the full UI and everything you expect to do there. You can now do that as well. And I guess that's important because we also announced with 8.0 that the update manager way of doing things or using baselines is deprecated as of vSphere 8. And sometimes the word deprecate can sometimes mean different things to different people, even internally. But what essentially it means is vSphere 8 will be the last release that you'll be able to use baselines or use the update manager way of doing things. So you still have, the next just under 5 years of vSphere 8 support to transition to that image-based cluster management. And in fact, you will have to transition to that image-based way of doing things if you want to start using vSphere config profiles.
Fantastic. Bob, Justin, anything comes to your mind for an interesting one for update 1 that you would like to mention?
Justin's got one.
Yeah. When you think about those VMs that I was talking about earlier that have multiple GPUs on them, each of those GPUs has potentially 80 gigabytes of memory that's private to that GPU. It's called frame buffer memory. Now think about vMotioning that thing, right? That GPU is working hard. It's dirting its pages of its frame buffer memory. And there's 4 of them on this VM. And you want to vMotion this from host to host. I used to laugh at that, but in vSphere 8 update 1, they've done a 250% improvement in vMotion. Lots of tuning. I sit on engineering meetings where lots of tuning is going on to vMotion. So the idea is to solve that problem of vMotioning this ginormous VM that has these 4 GPUs attached to it, each of which is working hard to dirty its pages. And that's sort of something we don't publish very much because there's not a lot of performance data we can give you on that. But I think if you try it, you're going to see an improvement there. And actually, I worked with a customer that had 4 GPUs that ran into this in 7 or 6.7, and they should see a lot better time now with 8.0 update 1 in particular. So that's going to make GPU workloads like every other workload that we deal with. You can vMotion it around,
Well, that's a really important point, Justin. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes into this that doesn't make it to the release notes, doesn't make it to our presentation here. That, vMotion especially. vMotion is sort of the killer application for vSphere, right? It's been around since 2005. It got a major rewrite in 7, and then a big improvements here in 8 and 8 update 1 to support a lot of this stuff. We want people to be able to move their workloads around without the workload noticing, and without disruption. Anytime you have to schedule an outage with an application admin or something like that, that's just trouble, and so we want that stuff to move around gracefully so that admins can patch ESXi, they can do maintenance on the hosts, if there's hardware problems that they can evacuate a host. And it's great when nobody downstream from the sysadmins notices.
Absolutely. And it's even more essential with these big things that I'm talking about, because who's going to be the person to talk to a data scientist user, a head of analytics at a company and say, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt your 2-day training job.
2-day or months long, like you look at some of those things, the trillion ones. Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Bob. There are papers out there that say it took 21 days to train this model. Well, in the middle of that, I'm going to say,
I'm biting my nails. Just, I'm going
to shut down your VM because I can't vMotion it. Well, VMware is unique.
You'll never get to patch.
It's essential, and I've never appreciated vMotion as much as when I started working on these GPU things, where I don't want to stop this job. I want to move it away and do my upgrades on my other servers and bring it back later. So
nice.
Yeah, you're right.
Hey, we've got some new questions out here, Shobhit. Can we address them for a second?
Yeah.
There's an off-topic question.
I saw those. Yeah, I saw the ones about Lifecycle Manager, and I can just quickly clarify those. One is just a comment, and I fully agree that it would be great for those standalone hosts to be able to define the image at a folder and have it cascade down to all the standalone hosts. Unfortunately, you do have to go to each individual one at this point in time, but I can definitely feed that back to the product management team. And just to clarify then the other question, what do we mean by standalone support or single host support? So we're talking about hosts that are managed by vCenter, but they're not in clusters. So prior to 8.0 update 1, if you had those sort of hosts that are managed by vCenter, not in clusters, you couldn't easily define the VLCM image way. You had to still use baselines, for example. So this is bringing the full declarative image model to those single hosts that aren't necessarily part of clusters.
And then the question about Broadcom, we don't know. Those are futures. Broadcom has said things publicly that, the stuff's going to stay the way it is, but futures are futures, and we don't have the answers even to give you, man. So
and then we suggest you refer to the corporate communication from Broadcom for any future communication around that. So, we won't speculate here on anything around future.
No.
Any other questions left?
Yeah, if you've got questions, put them out in the chat or in the comments. Now's your chance. You've got 4 live humans here to answer your questions. So, wow.
And
Justin's probably just an AI representation of.
I am just
I haven't seen him in a while, so
I'm not allowed to answer that question.
I'm not seeing fresh questions pop up yet. So I have one, Justin. We did an upgrade where we added support for NVLink on vSphere 8, right?
Yep.
Now we're adding NVSwitch. Do you mind kind of sharing for the audience the difference between the two technologies and what that enables?
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. Yeah. NVLink is a little bridge device that you plug 3 of them on top of your 2A100 GPUs. And it's very simple, and it's point-to-point connections. It's GPU A talks to GPU B and doesn't talk to anybody else in that server. And by the way, I forgot to mention earlier, there are servers out there that have these big collections of GPUs in them. They're called HGX servers by NVIDIA. The reason they're given that name is because NVIDIA certifies a baseboard with 8 GPUs and 6 NV switches in it, and certifies that for use, first of all, in their own DGX server, which is world famous, but also in third-party OEM servers like Supermicro machines, Dell machines. And you can put 2 of those boards into one server. That's 16 GPUs in a server. I'm smiling here because this is amazing. But anyway, so OEMs are plugging those into their servers, special purpose servers, obviously, for special applications. And on that board are 6 chips on that HGX baseboard. There are 6 chips that are called NVSwitch chips. And NVSwitch is different to NVLink, although the 2 are related, in allowing any GPU to talk to any GPU on that box. So you have 8 GPUs on that board. Anyone can communicate with any other. And you can collect them together into one unit and say, that's a device group in vSphere terminology. And I'm going to treat that as one thing when I'm configuring my VM. So NVLink is point-to-point, NVSwitch is any-to-any, is the distinction to make in your mind. But the terminology is used interchangeably. So NVSwitch is referred to as using the NVLink protocol for communication between these. And the amazing thing about all this NVLink and NVSwitch stuff is the bandwidths. They're in the 450 gigabytes per second in one direction bandwidth. That means 900 gigabytes per second bidirectionally across the NVSwitch. If you were looking at a PCIe connection, you're talking about 64 gigabytes per second.
Yeah.
So it's an order of magnitude faster. It's huge. And we've done, our engineering team, our performance engineering team has done benchmarks on this that shows, with four GPUs in the box, you switch off NVLink, you get performance equal to 1. You switch on NVLink, you get performance equal to 3, roughly. So it's not 4 times, but it's 3. So performance is really enhanced by this NVLink, NVSwitch technology. So highly recommended if you're in the multi-GPU world, if you're buying these servers with 4 or 8 GPUs in them. NVLink for 2 to 4, NVSwitch for 8 GPUs is the summary there.
So Justin, if I give you my address, you'll send me one?
Absolutely, no problem.
I think we should.
I think we all need
should
one.
get one for the team so that we can see
probably
how many
need a-
frames per second we can get in a piece of game.
How much power does one of those things draw? I probably need my own small nuclear reactor here to power one of those things, you know?
The Hopper H100 is in the 350 watts range. It's a power hungry thing, and they do liquid cooling of some of these now. You know, so it's the Cray computer of the future. You know,
they're faster than the old style Crays, you know, and the new Crays are all just this stuff clustered together, you know. So, wow.
And with vSphere Green Metrics, we can tell you how much that's costing you.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Hey, we've got a couple other. Oh, I'm sorry, Shobhit. I was just going to say there's a couple other questions.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
There's another one here that Féidhlim can probably answer. Config profiles. Is it able? Are you able to mask certain elements like you can with host profiles?
Yeah, so it's done a little bit differently in the overall cluster document. We've got, let's say, 3 main sections of the document. One is called, I think, ESXi, which is like pretty much all the agnostic configuration. And then you actually have host-specific configuration, things like, you know, your IP addresses, FQDNs. But you also have what we call host overrides. If you do want to have one or more hosts in that cluster, have something slightly different or abstracted from the main profile. So yeah, short answer, yeah, you can do it. It's just done a little bit differently now as well.
Cool.
Another question for you, Féidhlim, is vSphere 8 update run available in VAMI?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that should be available as of yesterday. Yep.
Yeah, in fact, it was showing up before the release notes were released, and everyone was like, "Yay!" You know. Yeah. So, but
there's another question there as well about Skyline, and maybe I didn't explain this correctly in the beginning. It's not that we have integrated the Skyline health diagnostics into vCenter 8.0U1. We've simply enabled a default plugin to help to guide you to actually deploy the appliance. So you still have to deploy the separate Skyline health diagnostics appliance, but it's the same version. There's one version no matter what release you're running.
All right, fantastic. Keep the questions coming in. It's love all these fantastic questions. Any others? We've got 7 minutes left to go. Okay.
Yeah. I have a question for Bob, and maybe you did answer this, but maybe you can expand a little bit more about how or why identity federation is important. I suppose touching on the fact that it means vCenter doesn't have the credentials, so it chooses the attack vector.
It doesn't have the credentials, but it also opens the door to flexible things, flexible multi-factor authentication. You know, MFA is a big step in, one of the things about attacks, you know, people, the ways hackers, I don't want to use the term hackers, and there's positive connotations to that. The way threat actors, bad actors, the bad guys of the world, that sort of thing, are breaking into environments. Passwords don't really prove that a human is there, you know, and so the idea of multi-factor authentication came about quite a while ago. That we can use a time-based token is the most popular one. You know, it's a special cryptographic algorithm generates a code on my phone, you know, and I can prove that it's me or somebody who's got my phone, at least got my device. So it's also not perfect, but it's a step forward, you know, prove that I'm who I am and I'm sitting here, and it's not, you know, it's part of the whole zero trust thing too. You know, how do you prove that? How do you stop trusting that the person coming from my IP address is me, you know, or the activity coming from my IP address. You know, how do you, we took that back a level, you know, how do we prove or help prove that the person logging in is me, you know, and is actually a valid user. And so not only does it get vCenter Server and vSphere out of handling those credentials, which helps immensely for things like compliance audits and whatnot, but it also means that organizations can have central policies. They don't have to manage vCenter and vSphere as well as their central setups. It also means that most of the Oktas of the world and that can introduce multi-factor authentication to help the cause as well. And so, yeah, you know, that's why it's important. Like I said, it's not perfect. There's multi-factor authentication. Certainly your device or token could be stolen. Your, you know, there's the push notifications. There's been some high profile breaches where the attackers were just spamming MFA push notifications at somebody in the middle of the night. They roll over and they hit, you know, just make my phone stop making all that noise, you know, and they let the attacker in. You know, humans are just going to do their thing, you know, and so it's not perfect, but it's important and it's helpful. And so yeah, it's a real piece of the puzzle, and there's more things to the roadmap there as well. So that's good.
More questions in chat?
Is there a version for the ARM platform? ESXi on ARM is like our worst kept secret ever. You know, that's showing up on the distributed service engine, the DPUs that we mentioned earlier. DPU support, the ability to have a coprocessor, basically an offload for network and storage and other functionality. That showed up as, we call it ESXi-O internally or whatever. Its actual name is Distributed Services Engine. That's where the ARM stuff is, but we don't have, it's still a fling out there. It's on flings.vmware.com if you want to download it and install it on your Raspberry Pi or whatever, but there's not a productized version of it yet. So is there a version for the ARM platform specifically? Strictly speaking, yes, there is a version of it. Is it supported in a real product? No, not yet. So
got it.
Let's see.
Yeah, and there's just some comments on one user using config profiles. Yeah, you know,
yeah, the multipathing claim rules. Yeah,
yeah. If
you're
hitting
given
issues,
me
definitely
from
get onto
previous
GSS.
lives.
Yeah.
So.
On config profiles, Féidhlim, is it going to be a replacement for host profiles?
No, at least not anytime soon. You know, it's and you know, obviously it's future talk as well, but you can almost look at it as like when we introduced vSphere Lifecycle Manager, we kept Update Manager around, and they've both been operating together in parallel since vSphere 7, and they will for vSphere 8. And that's how I would look at it right now. You know, host profiles isn't going away during the vSphere 8 release cycle. I can't speak to what may or may not happen in a future release.
Got it. Now, I think, Bob, the question popped in, any update for fault tolerance in vSphere 8 U1? Does it still support?
Same as before. Yeah. The fault tolerance, the specs for fault tolerance are still the same. 8 vCPUs and 4 VMs on a host. That comes down to bandwidth limits. You know, copying CPU instructions to a whole remote host is crazy on its surface, you know, and so you need a lot of bandwidth to do that sort of thing in a reasonable amount of time. And so that's where those limits come in. So those have not changed.
For any limits, not just fault tolerance, check out the config max guide that has everything for 8.0, 8.0 U1 if any have changed.
Configmax.vmware.com. We've got all of the configuration maximums and minimums as it might be.
Fantastic. So I think we got one more minute. I think it may be a good time to kind of wrap up stuff here. Want to first of all thank all of you experts, thank all of the audience. I think it was a lot of fabulous interaction, great questions. Thanks to each one of you guys.
No, thank you.
You're welcome.
Shobhit.
Thanks for having us along. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and a big thanks to the audience. Like I said earlier, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll get, if you ring the bell, you get notified if we've got new content. When we have new content, it's not an if. Féidhlim's been posting a lot of stuff about config profiles. I've got some new security, some VTPM and native key provider stuff. Justin's been talking about AI and ML and GPUs and all that stuff for a long time, and he will continue talking about it, I suspect, here, and that is great. So I'm glad to see a lot of that work be in the limelight here.
And then you can learn all about this update on vSphere.com. On the very top, there's a very detailed blog in which we put in all these details. Féidhlim are going to be doing a VMUG next week. So if you are part of that group, please definitely join in and listen in. Again, very, very thanks a lot to the audience for some really wonderful questions. If we haven't reached through, we haven't answered anything yet because of shortage of time, we'll definitely get back to you on that. But again, thanks a lot, fabulous audience. Thanks a lot to all the fabulous experts here. Signing off. Have a great day. Great weekend.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.